Good evening. Welcome to the November 14th, 2022 meeting of the Coeur d'Alene Parks and Recreation Department. Melissa, will you get us started with roll call, please?
Commissioner Cranston,
Here.
Commissioner McDowell, Commissioner Lean,
Here.
Commissioner Tate,
Here.
Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Bakes,
Here.
Commissioner Wood.
Here.
Thank you, Melissa. Commissioner Lean, can I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Let's see. Do any of the members tonight have a conflict of interest with any of our agenda items? No. Okay, there are none. Which brings us to approval of the October 17th, 2022 meeting minutes. Any comments or revisions or motions to approve?
I move that we accept the minutes as written.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Bakes and seconded by Commissioner Tate to accept the October 17th meeting minutes as written. All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. So, Bill, that brings us to your staff report.
Well, just a couple of updates. You were asking me earlier about our wind damage in the latest windstorm. We were prepared. We probably lost 12 or 15 trees. It wasn't too bad. Our newest park in Sherman, off of Sherman, it had a couple of plums that we were trying to salvage. They didn't make the storm. Along with the plums are pretty weak rooted anyway, and we lost a couple of those along the seawall. Pretty good pine inside City Park. We lost a big a blue spruce and Forest Cemetery. But overall, it was not as bad as we were concerned with, so we did okay. And then our winterization is finally done. We were running behind the curve a little bit. Jeff and I, Erickson, our superintendent, talked about it. We're going to change it up a little bit, start a little earlier. We're going to have to run 2 compressors. Our system's large enough. He started the 3rd week of September, and he was pushing slush up until last week. And in fact, he worked a couple of big days on the weekends, even when there was snow on the ground, to try and get ahead of it. So that was Czar Thacker, our irrigation technician. So anyway, we're going to change that up a little bit and try to get it done sooner. We've done that in years past. We started in early September, but September's so nice so often that the grass starts looking dead, and it's just not as nice. So we kind of hold off. So we're gonna grab another compressor and spend more time with more people out there getting it done. The same timeline, which be the 3rd week of September through the end of October. So other than that, that's all I've got for you.
Okay, any questions for Bill? Yeah, it's been kind of an unusual year, Bill. It went from summer to winter with
Well, I was talking to Nick
not
about
much
that
fall
today.
in between.
Yeah, it was weird because we didn't have a fall to speak of. There wasn't enough time for the sap, the xylem phloem, to change in the trees. They just look dead now. There's no color. All the London plains, everything's just toasted. There's no color left. You look out here now, and I bet you 70% of the trees have 50% of the leaves on them still. So yeah, it's outside my office. There's a dogwood. It's still green. It hasn't even changed color yet. So yeah, it's an odd one for sure.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners tonight have any comments or announcements to make? Okay, then we'll keep going. Next order of business on the agenda are public comments, and being that we don't have any public with us tonight, I guess we can go ahead and skip through that. And brings us to our urban forest report. Nick, it's all yours.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that.
Yeah, trying to get my slideshow. There it is. Okay, it's different on my computer. Okay, good to go. Hello, commission members. It's a pleasure to be here again. I'm just here tonight to give you a brief update on the Fernand Lake Natural Area Hazard Fuel Treatment that we've performed utilizing grant funds. You guys have been hearing about this project for a long time, been in the works since I came into the position, and we're getting close to finally wrapping this thing up. So this will be one of my last updates, particularly regarding the work at the Fernand Hill Natural Area. Just a quick reminder on this project, our driving force behind the project was public safety in the event of a wildfire. The hazardous fuel treatment, which is what this was really to reduce ladder fuels and those lower level fuels that are super thick on the hill, and that's a one-way in, one-way out neighborhood. So we were trying to reduce the risk of a fire starts in that area of it spreading up into the residential homes. That's what we consider a wildland-urban interface, where the wildland meets the urban setting. This was all done with the Idaho Department of Lands grant program. It was a local match that was provided by in-kind service between the Idaho Department of Lands, Kootenai County Operations of Emergency Management, and here at the City of Coeur d'Alene, our staff. We had a defensible space plan that was written by our project manager, Steve Bladel, and this project involved private landowners and the other landowner being the City of Coeur d'Alene. The grant priorities were to perform work in the Fernand Natural Area and the Armstrong Park neighborhood. That was community involvement with the Armstrong Park chipping program. That chipping program took place last year. There was some talk about performing another chipping program, but I don't think that's going to come to fruition. I'll get into what we're going to do with some of the funds that we have left over at the end of the slideshow. So on top of that, we have other projects in the Armstrong Park area that we're looking to complete if there's funding available at the end of the program, which we've reached that point. The project objectives were to save lives and protect property, number one, and also to support the natural area special values. We tried to write a prescription that really lined up with that area, preserved as many habitat trees as we could, and didn't have too big of an impact on the natural area. We had 29 total acres treated. Mechanical fuel treatments, we had 13 acres. Hand fuel treatment were 14 acres. Phase one of that project was cutting and piling by the contractor, and then we had the phase two, which was the 2022 pile burning, which we did complete this fall. There was a 2-acre parcel near the I-90 exit ramp that is owned by the Idaho Department of Lands, so they were a second property owner involved in this project. Herbicide, so the herbicide treatment and seeding, we had an herbicide treatment that was utilized during the work, and in the areas where we use that treatment is super effective. Hopefully that's going to be a good way to keep a lot of that work stay in place for as long as possible. We did have some areas where weather constraints made it to where we couldn't use that herbicide, so we're talking about possibly doing a spring treatment on the new growth, try to get some herbicide treatment up there on those areas that had cut. We also have...
Can I get you to move in front of the mic?
Oh, yeah. Let me move my mouse. So, forgive me. So we have completed some wildland grass seeding on the Fernand Hill. We have other areas that we'll be seeding this spring. We're using a wildland mix to try to get a nice, healthy regrowth of desired grasses in those areas where we've performed treatment and burned. So this is just a map that shows you the area that we treated with this project. The blue highlighted areas are in our handwork areas, and that's going to be the areas where we saw burning of piles. And the red highlighted areas are where we performed mechanical work. As I get into this next slide, you can see that mechanical work in practice right here. This is the equipment we used. It's basically a excavator with a masticating head, basically a big wood chipper on the end of that thing. And we go through mowing down that material, and that's where we would then come through and do herbicide treatment. So here is some of the conditions prior to work. You can see that equipment going to work right there. And then as we slide down, you can see some of the end results from that work. You can see the material that was removed, all those lower ladder fuels, as well as the dead lower limbs that are also ladder fuels that help promote fire spread. Here's just another example of that mastication work. You can see on the left the condition prior to work, and then the end result on the right. So we had pretty good success. There was some impact to the ground from that equipment. It's a pretty heavy piece of equipment. Luckily, as you walk the area now, even with this short growing season that we've had since the work was complete, pretty much can't see any real impact from that equipment anymore. And as things continue to grow, you'll hardly be able to tell we had equipment up there in a year or two. Now we get to the handwork. You can see, here's just another example of where we performed that hand treatment. That was guys on the floor, on the ground, doing handwork and then piling. This next slide just shows you some of the piles that they had. A good example of what we were up there looking to burn. Now we did run into some issues, which was kind of the story with this project, a lot of delays from day one. And we had some delays. We were working with the Idaho Department of Lands to get some burning done. They had a few policy changes that took place, so we ended up having to shift gears in order to get this completed, hired some private contractors to help us complete the burn, and we were able to get the burn done here in October. We burned from the 27th to the 31st. We had guys burning and on-site to monitor for that entire time frame. There's about 25 total people involved. We had staff from the City of Coeur d'Alene Parks Department, the City of Coeur d'Alene Fire Department, private contractors, and Idaho Department of Land staff was assisting with the burn and helping with monitoring. A lot of burning, a lot of chunking in those piles as we burn. And you can just see here more of the burn taking place. And then that slide on that picture on the right is kind of our end result, what we ended up with after the piles burned. Now that the burn's been complete, we talk about the results. We had about 90% consumption. That means we've got about 10% of the material we chopped up and piled is still up there. Now, we left a lot of that in place. We made the decisions on some of those smaller piles to leave them as nesting habitat. We didn't view those piles. We walked the area, found piles we didn't view as being of risk for fire start. They had broken down enough. And with so much material being removed, we thought it was a good idea to leave some material as nesting sites for wildlife. Now, as you perform these burns, sometimes that fire can get into the root systems a little bit, maybe find an old stump in the ground, and you might see some small smoldering that takes place. That's to be expected. The chance of spread between now and summer is nearly zero, so no real concern. We've been walking the area every day, and now we're about once a week, just to make sure that we don't see anything, and if we do, we just take care of it and make sure it doesn't spread. But now that the snow's on the ground, we really have no concerns. So we did have some areas of trail where, in order to keep fire from spreading during the burn, they did have to make some fire lines, resulted in a little damage to some of our trails. Luckily, Monty McCulley and I were able to get a volunteer crew up there, and we've already completed the trail repair work that needed to be followed up on. So that's all complete, and the trails are already open for public use. The weather conditions were ideal, and the fire was completely contained. We had no spread from the natural area, and it really didn't spread through the natural area. We maybe had one tree where it got into a dead tree, and we had to put that out. So throughout the entire process, it went about as good as we could have expected. So now I get on to what's next with this project. As I said, we've reached the end of the Panhandle Natural Area project, and now we're moving on to using the remaining funds. One of the goals of this project has been, and we involved this community in the pre-work, was performing work in the Veteran Centennial Park, which, if you're not familiar with that park, it is our 16-acre natural open space referred to as Veteran Centennial Park. The area we're looking to treat is approximately 7 acres. And the work is not going to be identical. The prescription won't be identical, but the end result is going to look real similar to what we've done at the Panhandle Natural Area. So if you live in that area, or if you use that area for recreation, and you want to see an example of what this will look like when we're done, you could take a walk to the Panhandle Natural Area. That'll give you a good idea. It's going to include the removal of some high-risk trees, and these are trees that we're going to remove for the safety of ground crews that are going to be on site. We also are going to be removing trees that have signs of active or recent bark beetle infestation. We're trying to keep that bark beetle spread down in our natural areas, and we view this as a good opportunity to do so. I'm going to be assessing the site with a couple people, including the project manager and a couple people from IDL next week, to finalize this prescription. Then we're going to open it up for contractors to give us estimates, the bidding process, and our plan is to have this work completed by 2023. It's a lot more open area. It's nowhere near as hilly as the Panhandle area, so we really shouldn't have to do as much pile burning. I think we're going to have a lot of opportunity to masticate a lot of that material we pull out and really limit the need for most pile burning. Might be some burning, but if so, it's not going to be anywhere to the challenge that we faced on the Panhandle.
So Nick, I've got one question for you, though.
Yes, sir.
In that, we're going to reach out to this neighborhood before, we haven't got it solidified yet, correct? So.
Correct. So
but we're working towards that process, and then we're going to reach out to the neighborhood to let them know, because we told them in the past, our master plan, about addressing this area, correct?
Yes.
So we're going to, it's coming. We'll be talking to the neighbors, let them know that we're going to do what we said we were going to do way back when we first did the master plan for this location.
Yes, Bill, part of this grant process involves a public outreach program, so we'll perform a public outreach program similar to what we did in the Panhandle, where we send out mailers, work with the HOA property, the HOA in that area, and hold a public meeting to get information out. So all of that will take place. We are really in still the final planning phases of this project. It's a much smaller scale project than what we took place on the Panhandle, so that process is a lot faster. And with that, we just get into the follow-up work. So all this work is great. The most important phase of it is the final phase, which is the follow-up work that we and other private property owners do. That's going to include the grass seeding that was already taking place in some areas. We're going to continue that in the spring. Weed control that I talked about a little earlier tonight, and then follow-up planting programs for native species trees that we find desirable. The good thing about burns is when you when you burn piles, it creates a really good area to grow seedlings. So we'll be planting in those areas. Probably going to do a lot of large ponderosa pine, western white pine, blister rust resistant western white pine. It'll all be native conifers. So we'll start doing those tree plantings this fall. We'll look for volunteer opportunities to get a handful of programs done. The other thing is it's going to give us the opportunity to improve trail access in that area. We'll lean on Monty McCauley to see what he wants to do there. But it's just going to improve the overall condition of that site for public use. And then the biggest part is the fuel break maintenance. Now that we've created these fuel breaks, in order for them to remain fuel breaks, we got to be able to perform maintenance and keep them up to snuff. So with that, appreciate the time giving you guys this update, and I'm happy to field any questions.
Thank you, Nick. Good report. Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nick, that's a fantastic report, and I'm trying to remember, are we about 3 years into this now?
So I can tell that story a little bit in like 2 seconds.
Sure.
So when I came into the area, when I came into this job in 2018, it had just been finalized for approval to get done. Took about a year because there was a government shutdown back then. Took about a year for the government to step in and say we're good to go. Then we started the planning process, which included meetings and public meetings, which all got put off due to this little thing called COVID-19 that we all dealt with. And then from there, about 2.5 years into actually being told we would start, we were able to actually start the project. So it took about about a year and a half longer than we expected for the planning process. And then it's been about 3 years total since we actually started the planning process to bring this to final fruition.
That's what I thought, since the entire time before I even got on council. But I do know that it's such a really incredible thing that's been done for that area. And I know the neighbors up there that have talked about the park in the past, I mean, they can just see what's been done now and know what they have to look forward to, that it's going to make them so much more safer. I'm wondering, Bill, I would like the entire council to see this presentation. What do you think about that?
We can't do it tomorrow night, but we can certainly do it
Yeah.
in the one after.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
Okay.
I think, Nick, I think they would be really impressed with the work that's been done, and it's really informative. It's good for them to see it.
Perfect. And we have applied for further grants, and we will continue to bring this information. We're not done performing fuel mitigation work in Coeur d'Alene. There's a lot of it that needs to be done, and we're gonna continue.
So to touch
push
upon
to
that
get it
grant
done.
that you and Monty have been working on for Tubbs.
We applied for 2 grants, one of which is to perform work on Canfield Mountain and Can Course. We have gotten tentative approval, not formal approval, that we're gonna receive $155,000 in grant funds to get work on the Canfield Mountain. Originally, we planned on including this Veteran Centennial work in that, but luckily, we've got some grant funds, which just means we can expand our footprint on Canfield Mountain and the Can Course. We've also applied for now that grant is pretty cool because it's just money. They give us the money, we go get the work done. This other grant we applied for is for the gem of Coeur d'Alene, is for Tubbs Hill. And that's about a $650,000 grant that we applied for. It's a competitive grant process, which we're just beginning. But if we get that done, it's gonna be real similar to what you saw on the Fran Hill, where it's gonna be managed through multiple different agencies. The city of Coeur d'Alene will basically be a partner in that. We won't be the managing agency, which I know sounds a little weird, but that's exactly how the Fernand Hill came about. And luckily, if we can get this grant, we should be able to complete more fuel mitigation than we've seen on Tubbs Hill for at least 20 years. And hopefully we should be able to have a treatment that looks real similar to what we've done on the Fernand Hill. And just crossing our fingers we get it. Either way, it gives us a nice roadmap, creating this prescription and preparing for the for the fuel mitigation, forgive me. Gives us a nice roadmap for what we want to do on Tubbs Hill. So even if we don't get this grant, just getting that process started gives us a roadmap, an A, B, and C, so we can start planning smaller phases of the project and start accomplishing those and getting those done in smaller areas, working with the Tubbs Hill Foundation, who's been involved since day one of this project, this grant application. And yeah, that's really all I have.
Walk with the site with Mark Weedy and a couple of members to show them what
We did.
we're hoping to do on Tubbs, as the example we did on Fernand, right?
Yeah, we did. We did a walk with the entire group. Also did a walk with Mark Weedick and, forgive me, the gentleman's name. We have a video that's been uploaded to the city website, Urban Forestry website, Trails website. I partnered with Jack Nesbitt. Jack Nesbitt and Mark Weedick partnered with me. They were the lead people on this. But it's just a walk of Tubbs Hill. It kind of goes over all the things that make it special as far as the habitat up there. It's a nice video if you guys want to check it out. I'm no actor, but I'm on there. And it was great, and that was part of that process. Getting up there and doing that was also where we walked the area, talked about some of our goals. And I know from all the feedback I've had, the Tubbs Hill Foundation is extremely excited about the opportunity to possibly get work done up there with this grant. That's all I've got, sir.
Good job, thank you.
Anything else for Nick? Thanks again, Nick.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Okay, our next item is also an information item regarding the River's Edge Apartments trail alignment.
So we had a guest that was going to help speak to this a little bit. Mr. Mike Gridley is working with this property owner, and he was going to be here this evening, but he's under the weather. So he asked me just to field this. And the reason I bring this forward to you now is that this is Atlas Park over here to the right of the screen. This is the approved plan, and this is the trail. But to get you a better idea, so here's Atlas Park, and our trail runs through here and through Mr. Douglas's property and on this direction. We're working with a developer over here about extending and completing some of this trail here, but Mr. Douglas had said that he will, do this trail for us and be part of his project. Initially, he had talked about it, having it down along the trail, the water's edge, and it wasn't approved due to some other reasons. And he is interested in dusting this plan off and taking it back to the Planning Commission to have the trail move back down along the river's edge. And that's the only thing I just wanted to bring up to you guys, is that this is not an approved idea. This is the approved plan you see before you. He's going to have to go back to the Planning Commission for some revisions that he'd like to do. That plan I didn't bring with me because I didn't want to have it on the air because it's not approved. It's pretty cool looking. He's got some areas where they're along the water's edge. There's some seating areas that they will maintain in his proposal. And there are some landscape areas all along here with little pockets that all of that will be on his crew to maintain. We'll work with him on snow removal and sweeping the trail, that kind of stuff. But other than that, just wanted to bring it to your attention that we have the great opportunity to maybe get this trail moved down to the water's edge.
Yes. Is there any time frame where this proposal might be coming back to planning and zoning?
Yeah, I think they're looking at trying to get it done close to the end of this year or the first part of next year. I talked to Hillary, and she's aware that Mr. Douglas is interested in bringing this forward, so I haven't looked at their docket yet, but here in the next few months, we'll probably see some motion on that.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Is that it on that one, Bill?
Yes, sir, that's it.
Okay. Let's move on to our next information item regarding skate park cameras.
Good evening. So this summer, the Parks Department applied for a grant through the Panhandle Health Foundation, or the district, for a grant from the Idaho Office of Drug Policy. And the idea behind this is we have a great new skate park, a lot of use, a lot of great kids that go out there and skate, and adults. The problem is even though it's a lot more open up than it used to be, at night it's still pretty hidden, doesn't have a lot of public eyes on it like a lot of our other parks do. So at times we get some vandalism down there and drug use and drinking and trash. And so, 99% of those kids are great. It's just a small portion that come out at night. And so we had thought, well, we want to get some cameras up there that can be monitored by the PD 24/7, and they can respond in real time if they see something happening down there. So we applied for this grant this last summer, and we were approved and got the grant. The cameras were installed a couple weeks ago.
With our IT group.
With our IT crew. They ran that whole thing, and they've set it all up, so it is good to go. So we're hoping that that'll help kind of change what happens down there at night and help keep our skate park better longer. Yeah, I guess that would help. And so this slide pretty much tells you everything I just told you.
So we really wanted to highlight our partnership with Kootenai, or Panhandle rather, I'm sorry. So they were a partner in this, and it was their grant money. They approached us, and we said that this sounds like a good partnership. And so Monty worked with our IT department and purchased the correct cameras according that will fit with our network and all that stuff. It's all their thing, they can do it. So go ahead and show the overview of the location of the cameras. There we go.
And so here is an overview of part of Memorial Park in the skate park. Here to the left you can see our bathroom facility next to the skate park. Here are the locations of the two cameras that we put up. And so they put them up high on the edge of the building, much cheaper than trying to get posts and all the electricity that goes with them. And so the north camera, you can see, covers a zone, a vision zone, fairly large, but doesn't capture all of it. And so the second camera gets everything that the north camera does not get. Combine them together, and it grabs just about everything in the park.
And this park too, initially, we had talked about cameras out there, and then in the project, we didn't have the funding for it. So this is a great opportunity for us to complete the job that we wanted to do when this park was initially built.
In the future, we're going to look for grants to get lighting along the trail down there that'll help quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I spoke with a gentleman the other day that has some lighting that's solar, that's supposed to be pretty good. And so he gave us a quote that was a little high. They in their engineering, they wanted to have it really, really bright. And when I spoke with him, I said, take out 3 cameras and spread out. What they had done is go back to that slide where you're showing the ones with all the vision. Yeah, so that's good. So this trail here that goes along the edge of this boulevard, they had started putting cameras right like, oh, sorry, thank you. They started putting cameras here. We don't need cameras here because we've got lighting here. And he did the same thing through on the north edge where the corner is. There's a light pole there. They took the lights all the way to the edge of the street on the corner. So I asked them to remove 3 lights and spread them out more concentrated in this area. And we didn't need to have it as lit, as bright as they want. We just need some ambient light in there. And so we're waiting on another quote from them. At the time, it seemed like those 6 lights were just shy of $28,000.
That sounds right.
Yeah, sounds about right. So we thought we could reduce that a little bit, and we might be able to chase that at about 18 maybe. hopefully, so we'll see. And the nice thing about this, we're not having to run wire. It's going to be solar, so it sets up well, being west is over here. The cameras would be on this side, and the solar panels would be facing west. And so we believe that they would work very well there, and it's a lot cheaper than.
The lights, not the cameras.
Pardon me?
Lights,
Yeah,
yeah.
the lights, not the cameras, I'm sorry. And so it would be a lot cheaper than having to run wire and dig. The nearest transformers across, I think, River Avenue. So we're going to have to talk to Jim Thorpe and get boring and a lot of stuff, and it would cost a lot more money. So we're looking at this as an option.
Great. Any questions for Bill and Monty? Christie?
Thank you. Oh, Bill, this is another thing I think council will be fascinated by. And under your report, or if Monty, and I just want to say, your team is really fantastic on grants. I mean, you just go look for everything, and it makes a huge difference. So,
Well,
great
thank
work.
you. Yeah, I mean, it's nice that they're out there, and it's we always try, and sometimes we don't win, but sometimes we do. So, it's a good thing. And in fact, Monty's here to talk about another grant that we're chasing.
Excellent.
Yeah, we've had quite a bit of success with grants lately, and here's another one. So,
Monty, are we going into the mooring dock?
yes.
Why don't you let me read your staff report, then you can take it from there. So this is our first action item tonight, mooring dock grant application. The decision point tonight is, will the Parks and Recreation Commission recommend City Council give permission to the Parks and Recreation Department to apply for a waterfront improvement fund grant to purchase new boat docks at the 3rd Street mooring docks. The 3rd Street mooring docks were originally installed in 2000 with a grant money, and for 22 years, the docks have been seen a high amount of usage by the boating public in the summer months. These docks allow boaters a place to tie up their boats and go on shore to utilize the amenities downtown. Services include a no-cost marine pump-out, a mooring area where boaters may tie up, 50 boat trailer parking stalls, a trailhead to Tubbs Hill, and access to McEwen Park, the Centennial Trail, and downtown shopping. Finally, the mooring docks serve as a complement to the Coeur d'Alene Resort and to all the businesses in the area. These docks were built with wood and have gone past the point where they can be repaired. The city has paid over $45,600 in repairs to these docks over the past 5 years, and if they aren't replaced, the number will continue to grow. The timber floats are rotted and won't allow purchase for the boats necessary to keep the docks from separating and becoming a public hazard. The largest portion of the funds for the boat dock and piling purchase will come from a state-funded WIF grant, with the Coeur d'Alene Parks Department providing the grant match dollars. The grant match funds will come from the city's Waterfront Improvement Fund, paid for by boat launch user fees. The breakdown is as follows. City Waterfront Improvement Fund, or funds from user fees, $150,000. State Waterfront Improvement Fund grant through state gas tax is $350,000 for a total of $500,000. The new dock's internal framework will be made of steel with polystyrene floats. The deck will be made of composite material. These docks are estimated to last for 50 years before needing replacement, as opposed to 15 to 20 years for wooden docks. Again, the decision point or recommendation tonight would be to recommend City Council give permission to the Parks and Recreation Department to apply for an IDPR Waterfront Improvement Fund grant to purchase new boat docks at the 3rd Street mooring docks. Take it away, Monty.
Well, thank you. In 2019, we applied to have the launch docks replaced down there. As you can see, these are the mooring docks we're talking about today. And these are the launch docks that we just had redone. Because it takes a couple years for the grant to go through. So we had them finished last year, I believe, 2021. And they've been great. We used the same docking system, the polystyrene floats with the steel cages, and it has steel bow rails, way more sturdy. And so we're really pleased with them. As a matter of fact, the third finger along the seawall was actually done in the same material in 2005, and it looks as new today as it did the day you put them in. So they're really sturdy, quality material. These are expensive projects, and this grant is really competitive. So we're competing with everybody else in the state that wants grants. So we usually work out a deal with other people to make sure anybody else in the north isn't applying for something big. We kind of switch off years to not step on each other's toes. And this year, the county wasn't going to, or they were going to apply for a grant, and they decided not to, and so left us open to go ahead and try to get these replaced. They're in bad shape, starting to fall apart. We got a small section closed off. We've spent a lot of money, and so we're actually hoping to not have to replace any of the pilings, just the docks, and use the exact same configuration as we have in the picture here. So these are our existing mooring docks. You can see made out of wood, which is great for 20 years or so, but they don't last forever. And we're at 23 years now. As a matter of fact, I think even though our launch docks that we had redone, they were originally from the 50s. They'd been redone right around the same time that these were built. So the lifespan is about the same. And so these were the original plans. A lot of space for boats up to 25 foot in length, 7 up to 36, I believe, and you can even tie one up to 70 feet long on the end. And so we have a pump out station here, which we will move, but everything else is pretty much going to be the same configuration. And that is it. It's pretty competitive. We normally we wanted it to be a little bit less than this, but when the estimates came in, we had to increase the amount of money we were putting in as a match, and that'll make our grant more competitive. They don't like to just give you all the money, and especially at a grant this large, so we have to put some in.
What Monty was alluding to, this is a state grant. Those monies go directly to Boise. Boise then allocates the funding to the northern counties. And so he was talking about not stepping on each other's toes. So we up here all work together, and we don't try to compete very much. And we reached out to Nick over in the county waterways, and he was going to go after this grant, but then he called Monty and said they changed their mind. So it opened a door for us. And as he said, the seawall docks have been there for a very long time. How long it's been? Since '05?
Yeah.
So they look, like you said, as good as they did when we installed them. Interesting enough, this was my first grant. I wrote this grant in 2000 and had spearheaded the project all the way through to completion. So they've served us well. His numbers in here don't really reflect all the monies that we spent. We only went back 5 years. But in 2015, we had another big windstorm. We were talking about windstorms earlier. We had almost $30,000 of damage at that time. So I'll bet you over the years, we've dropped $100,000 on this amenity, just because it's so waterlogged and so old. And in fact, the construction of it was such that, being my first project, I didn't know what I was looking at, and there were some mistakes that were made that we had to correct over the years, in that we had lag bolts that were used. I trusted the marine company that was doing the work. We should have had through bolts with big washers in the back end, so a lot of the stuff over the years started pulling out, so we were always having to do work on them. So I'm excited for this opportunity, because the other docks that we installed do not break down. I mean, it just don't. I mean, they get bent sometimes. The bull rails get busted. We've had a boat once before go up on the top of the docks, but those folks fixed that for us. And so, but other than that, they're pretty bulletproof.
If city council were to give you permission to pursue the grant, what's kind of the schedule, a time frame from application to award?
Well, you're going to go, well, go ahead.
So the grant application is due in January. This December, we'll go to the Kootenai County Waterway Board and present it to them. We'll take it to, that'll be after council, and then we'll finish the grant. The funds, we should get a letter of award if we get awarded by April. And so the money should be available by June or July.
And normally, they don't want you to start the work until September.
That's
That's what
correct.
happened last time.
Yeah.
Right, so near the latter part of this season, this coming season, we'll start the process. We'll have to go out to bid, that sort of thing, but I'm hopeful we'll get it. And our funding source is our Parks Capital Improvement Fund. I've been putting some good numbers into our waterfront improvement with anticipation of this need, and so we have the match money set aside already.
Bill, is there any work that's going to have to be done with the existing mooring docks to make it serviceable for another season?
We've done a little work on it. We'll limp through. If the work that we can't do, we have to call a marine company, but we'll make it come together. Baling wire and duct tape, it'll be fine.
Ginny?
What happens with the docks that you take out? What do you do with all that matter?
Well, sometimes if they were viable, we might be able to find a buyer. But these are in such poor shape, I think we're actually having to pay a disposal fee, and they're in a proposal that we were talking to a local company to give us some ideas about what costs we're looking at. And so we don't have any plans for them. Do you want to put a bid on them?
I was hoping we'd find a buyer.
Okay, we'll look that direction.
Well, no, that's a tough thing, because some of those things are as expensive to pull out as it is to bring in the new.
Yeah, I think it was a good number. So you make a good point. So we'll search around and see if we might have somebody that would take them off our hands and not have to pay a disposal fee.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Do we need a motion, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
All right. I'd make a motion that we recommend City Council give permission to the Parks and Recreation Department to apply for an IDPR Waterfront Improvement Fund grant to purchase new boat docks at 3rd Street Mooring Docks.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made by Commissioner Wood and seconded by Commissioner Tate to recommend City Council give permission to the Parks and Recreation Department to apply for an IDPR Waterfront Improvement Fund grant to purchase new boat docks at the 3rd Street Mooring Docks. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that's unanimous recommendation, and it goes to General Services?
Yeah, I lost sync in which general services and public works where they fall, but one of those on a Monday will be at the next one, yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, our last action item then is in regards to the Panhandle Kiwanis agreement in McEwen. The decision point tonight is should council renew the agreement with the Panhandle Kiwanis Club for the Taste of the Coeur d'Alene event during the first weekend in August for 3 years, with an option to renew for 3 additional years at the end of the 2025 season. The Taste of the Coeur d'Alene event has been held in City Park for the past 30 years. Panhandle Kiwanis requested a renewal of their 3-year agreement to assure the dates and times of the annual event. Kiwanis will pay the city for use of the park, the fee established per resolution. The fee covers booth space, including vendors and concessions. Overtime costs are usually associated with special events, and those costs are also paid to the city by the event sponsor. The fee covers all costs associated with the event. The Panhandle Kiwanis Club purchased the Taste of the Coeur d'Alene event from the Festivals Committee approximately 13 years ago. This event is a favorite amongst the locals and visitors and occurs at the same time as Art on the Green and the Downtown Street Fair. Again, the decision point tonight is whether recommendation to council should approve the renewal of the agreement with the Panhandle Kiwanis Club for the Taste of the Coeur d'Alene event during the first weekend in August for 3 years, with an option to renew for an additional 3-year period at the end of the 2025 season. Bill, do you have anything to add?
No, other than the fact that my crew tells me this is their favorite event. It was my favorite event when I was in the field. Kiwanis organization does a very good job at managing this event. I worked with the previous owners. They were good at it. I think Kiwanis is better. They've been a very good partner, and our staff, like I said, this is the one that they look forward to.
Great. Any questions or discussion?
I'd make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I would make a motion that council should approve the renewal of the agreement with the Panhandle Kiwanis Club for the Taste of the Coeur d'Alene event during the first weekend in August for 3 years, with an option to renew for an additional 3-year period at the end of the 2025 season.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Warren. The motion by Commissioner Lean and seconded by Commissioner Bakes to recommend the council should approve the renewal of the agreement with the Panhandle Kiwanis Club for the Taste of the Coeur d'Alene event during the first weekend in August for 3 years, with an option to renew for an additional 3-year period at the end of the 2025 season. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, another unanimous recommendation. I guess that'll follow the previous one to
Correct. Yep.
either Public Works or General Services. Okay. That's wrapping up our agenda for tonight. Last chance for anybody to make any comments or announcements. Okay. I'm just going to announce our next meeting times then. Tuesday, December 6th at 11:30 a.m. Will be our next scheduled workshop at City Hall Conference Room number 6. Bill, do we have any potential agenda items yet?
Not at this time. I do have a couple of agreements that are going to be coming forward your way in the next few months before the season begins. Tyler Davis, his is up for renewal, and the festivals committee, the Arts and Cultural Alliance with Ally, they're up. So we'll be seeing those come forward. With the holiday and stuff, I'm not certain we're going to get those in before the close of the year. So, but we will see what their timeline is. We're meeting with all of our event sponsors, given the fact that we have to change the way we're managing some of these things. Our events have grown quite a bit. Even the smaller events have become very large, and they're taking up more and more staff time. So we're trying to get a handle on that. We are honoring all of our work we're coining as historical annual events. We just are being very selective about any larger event. That doesn't mean that someone can't have a birthday party at a gazebo, that sort of thing, but an event where it takes staff time and a lot of man hours, we may not have those man hours to spare.
Okay, and then finally, our next regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission will be December 18th, 5:30 p.m. right here in the library community room. With that, I guess I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Okay. Motion's been made by Commissioner Bakes and seconded by Commissioner Tate to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you in December.
Thanks, everybody.